Colin Powell once said, "There are no secrets to success. It's the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure." And we couldn't agree more. This is Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. We'll talk to people from all walks of life and pick their brains about their journey, the process, and the ups and downs to becoming successful. You want inspiration and motivation? It all starts here. This is the Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. And now your host, Kyle Sullivan.
What's going on, champions? Welcome to another episode of Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. Today we have Brenden from MasterTalk. He coaches ambitious executives, entrepreneurs to become the top 1% communicators in their industry. Who wouldn't want that? He's also has a popular YouTube channel called MasterTalk with one goal of providing free access to communication tools for everyone in the world. Brenden, thanks so much for being on the show today, man.
It's great to be here, Kyle. Thanks for having me.
Dude, I as a communicator and a speaker, and that's primarily what I do with Unleash the Champ. I'm really excited for this conversation. I've done my research and watched your videos. They're incredible, man. So, man, we know what you do, but who is Brenden behind the bio?
For sure, Kyle. I mean, Brenden behind the bio isn't anything special. That's why I use the bio to make myself sound a little bit better. But yeah, I got an incredible mom, sister. I live in Montreal. I was born and raised in that city my whole life. And then how MasterTalk came to be and how that came about in my life was when I was in business school, Kyle. I studied in accounting. So literally the opposite of what I'm doing today. I was a numbers guy. I thought that's what I was going to do with my life. And then while I'm in school, Kyle, I started doing these things called case competitions. They give it like professional sports, but for nerds. So other guys my age are playing rugby or baseball or basketball or some other sport you wouldn't see me playing. I did presentations competitively. That's how I learned how to speak. But then as I got older, I started coaching a bunch of students in college on how to communicate. And I accidentally got really good at coaching other people how to do it. So I started making YouTube videos for fun mostly, called it MasterTalk, and the rest is history.
That's amazing, man. And I know one of the quotes that you have is like, the next Elon Musk is a 7-year-old that can't afford a communication coach. And so I love your heart behind it, man. What, with public speaking, presentations, that is probably most of our listeners' biggest fear. And so talk about like, man, the biggest challenge in getting started, or, those folks that you've coached over the years, like what's their biggest barrier in the beginning?
Yeah, for sure. For me, Kyle, it's all about consistency. That's really what pays the bills in any skill, and definitely the case for communication. Except the problem is we don't practice at all. So if we take any other skill, like going to the gym is a simple one. If we go to the gym enough times a week and we practice and we work on ourselves and we eat the right things, we'll probably lose a pound or two in a month if weight loss is the goal. And that gives us the right momentum to get better at it. Whereas in communication, I find because it's so vague, it's really hard for us to go like, how am I actually getting better? Whereas in fitness, if you can do 1 push-up on the first day and 20 push-ups on after a month, you got a lot better at something. Whereas in communications, it's harder to track the progress. So for me, it's keeping it simple. Communication is like juggling 18 balls at the same time. And for us, the question is just to figure out what is the easiest ball to juggle, or what are the 3 easy balls? So the first one for me is the random word exercise. Pick a word like light bulb, like home, and just presentations every single day. You'll get better pretty quickly.
I love that, man. So the random word, we would, so I was a pastor for a while, and we would have this game where we would throw each other a word when we were about to go on stage, and we'd have to work it into our talk, our presentation, our stage time is what we called it. We'd have to work that word in somewhere. And so I love that you do that. It's super fun and definitely stretches that muscles there. What is the key to, so we know consistency, we know being able to do presentations every day. What are some of those nuanced things if someone's going, okay, I maybe don't want to be a public speaker, but I do want to improve my communication. What are the things that you would say, okay, do this, don't do this, focus on here. What are some of those things, Brenden?
For sure. So I always draw back to fitness, Kyle. So nobody does 5 squats and never has to do a squat again for the rest of their life. So it's never, hey, you got to do 5 and then you're done forever. No, you just got to keep doing the same exercise. The routines don't change. Okay, one day might be leg day, one day might be arm day, but you're always focused on the same reps. So for me, the main idea, whether the goal is to be a speaker or just a better communicator, which is frankly what I help most people with, is if we're not willing to do the random word exercise 100 times, we shouldn't go to the next tip. So for everyone listening, my challenge, and then obviously I'll give you the next tip, is book 5 minutes in your calendar for the next 3 weeks. Just 5 minutes. And do the random word exercise 5 times. If you do that for 3 weeks, you'll have done it 100 times. And that's what builds up momentum. But to your point, Kyle, it doesn't just help us on stage. It helps us in our life. I'll give you a simple analogy. Let's say you're meeting somebody new at an event, at a bar, at a cocktail, at a party, and they start asking you questions about your life. A lot of people are really bad at small talk. But if you do the random word exercise enough times, you get really good at thinking quickly on your feet. So you can make stuff up really quickly and continue the conversation. So that's one way in how this becomes not just one benefit, but you get like 10 other benefits from just doing that one thing. And then the next piece is just second ball. The second ball is the question drill. We get asked questions all the time in our life, Kyle, at work, at school, on a podcast. Like for me, the first question I got asked on a podcast a few years ago was, where does the fear of communication come from? And I looked at the guy and I was like, I don't know, dude. Ohio? You tell me. I don't know where the fear comes from. So what did I do? And I challenge everyone else to do this too, Kyle. Every single day for 5 minutes, answer one question that you think somebody will ask you about your expertise. And in a year, you'll have answered 365 questions.
I love that, man. It's about putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and then the consistency piece. I love that. I know one of the things, because I've worked with a handful of communicators, done speaking competitions, the whole thing, is people think, oh, you're good at public speaking because you're an extrovert. And like, I could never do that. I'm an introvert. I like to be behind the scenes or whatever. Talk to that. Is there different personalities that are more predisposed to success in public speaking? Or is it, hey, build consistency, do the reps, do the exercises, and anybody can do it? Is there correlation with that, you think?
Definitely on the second end of the spectrum, Kyle. I think anybody can be a great communicator, including introverts. And let me make it really simple. Does everybody in theater extrovert? Is everybody in theater an extrovert? Impossible statistically. There has to be some introverts. So why are they so good at acting? Because their frame of reference is different. So let's say when you're a kid and you're doing presentations and you're getting laughed at in the classroom, that's the frame of reference that all of us have. Whether we're raised in the United States, whether you're born in Canada like me, whether you're in the UK, it doesn't really matter. That's the frame of reference. But if you're a kid in theater and you're an introvert, you don't see it as, oh, I shouldn't do this because you love theater. You do it because, oh, if I do a great job, I'm going to help the audience. They're going to have a great time. They're going to have a great experience. So for me, yeah, there's some personas that might have a tendency for speaking. It might be easier. But I think the bottom line is, in the same way anyone can get more fit, I definitely believe anyone could be a better communicator, because 99% of people aren't even willing to do 100 random word exercises. And you don't need to be a great speaker to even just attempt the exercise, which gets you 80% of the result anyways.
Yeah, I think that's important, because when I've talked to folks that are like, I could never do that. I could never public speak. I'm like, you're speaking in public right now. It's just with more people when you're on a stage. And so just building that confidence in them. Man, one of the things that I think shifted a ton of folks that I had to get better at was the idea in speaking virtually like this. So 2020 pandemic hit, and people who were used to being in front of audiences, in front of stages, doing all this, and then it's like, all right, you got to go virtual and look at the camera. You got to communicate when you're not in front of people. How have you seen that change the speaking landscape? And I know, with yours, it's YouTube, you were on camera already, but how is that improved? What are some detriments to it? How can people improve in a virtual platform?
For sure, Kyle. So 2 parts there. One is how to master online. And the other is a point that you brought up earlier that I want to jump in with. You said something really important, which is a lot of people believe that, oh my God, Kyle can be a speaker, Brenden can be a speaker, but I could never do that. So let me comment on that a little bit. For everybody who's thinking that right now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to do an exercise that my coach teaches called the impossible log. Make a list of 5 accomplishments that you're the most proud of in your life. And now you look at those accomplishments and ask yourself, did you believe those were impossible to at the beginning? And the answer is probably yes. I could never immigrate to another country. I could never find the love of my life. I could never get fit. I could never make more money. I could never get a job. And you realize that there's a lot of things in your life that you already accomplished that you thought were not possible. So how is public speaking any different? Right? It's the same game. It's just you're applying the same rules that prevented you from getting the success before, but made you successful because you pushed through them. So you'll push through this one too. So in terms of speaking online, there's 3 key differences between in-person and online, Kyle. The first one is eye contact, to your point. Because when you're in person, you're constantly moving your body to look at the different people in the audience. But when you're online, whether it's 1 or 10,000 people, you're only looking in one place, which is the camera lens. And it gives the illusion that you look at everyone at the same time directly in their eyes. That's 1. Number 2 is energy. Let's face it, Kyle, it's a lot easier to show up with energy when you're in person, right? You're in person, you're giving a workshop, you're sharing your thoughts, you can give people a hug, give them a high five. And it also comes with accountability, where you actually have to shower that day. You have to wake up in the morning. You have to dress well. Whereas when you're online, the same level of accountability isn't there. You have to pull more energy. So the advice just becomes get better in person and bring as much of that energy as possible back into where we are today, back into who we are. So that's number 2. And then finally, number 3 is audience engagement and accessibility. If we're in person, Kyle, and I want some feedback, you're right in front of me. I can get lunch with you right away. It's super easy. We can get a snack. I just want to hear your thoughts. And there's no friction. But online, there's a ton of friction. Because as soon as you're done your presentation, the call just ends and everyone disappears. So you have to actually force yourself to get on more calls with people so you get the feedback you need to get better.
Yeah, I love that. And being able to communicate online, you have to make it even bigger than maybe you even would in person to communicate through that lens and through the camera. So that's the folks that want to communicate better. Let's say now we'll talk to the people that go, man, I got a story. I got a message. I want to do more public speaking. And how do I get started with that? How do I leverage my story, my expertise in a lane of public speaking?
Right. And the advice is really simple, Kyle. The problem I have with other people giving advice on this topic is that they'll say, like, go find an agent, go message a bunch of people and get on stages. My advice always starts with invite 5 friends, not 5,000, not 50 million, 5. My first workshop was in front of 2 people. So 5 people, and just say I'm doing a 60-minute presentation on Zoom on whatever I want to speak about, and you just do that. I still do that to this day. It's just, more than 5 people show up to it now. But it's the same thing. Every 2 weeks, I open a Zoom call. I say, guys, I'm giving a free workshop on communication for the community. 5-year-olds can come, CEOs of billion-dollar companies. I don't care. Everybody just come on the call. What stops you from doing it? And in my opinion, what stops all of us is just identity. We're waiting for somebody to pick us, Kyle. Seth Godin calls this the pick me culture. It's like we want to get chosen for something. I want to win this award. I want to get chosen for that job. I want to be chosen to be an actor. I want to be chosen to be on Broadway instead of just picking ourselves. And that's really the key that I want to push people with is when you start creating that Zoom call and you bring people for free, your identity will start to change. And then you'll want to make the presentation better. And one of those days, what will happen, which is exactly what happened to me, somebody's going to come on that call and be so amazed at your presentation that they'll tell somebody who's an event planner, they'll tell their company to say, oh my God, we got to bring this Brenden kid to come give a presentation, and we'll pay him money to do that. And that's really the key.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, just that imperfect action. You open a room up, you do it. I love how practical these tips are, man. And what are some other like go-tos that you tell your clients and your customers like, hey, make sure you're doing these things?
Absolutely, Kyle. And I'm glad you're finding some value there. So let's go back to this 18-ball analogy, right? Communication is like juggling 18 balls at the same time. Storytelling, body language, smiling, and it gets confusing. So let's recap the random word exercise. Are we booking 5 minutes a day to do 5 random word exercises a day? If you do that for 3 weeks, you'll have done it 100 times, and that's 100 times more than everybody else listening to this podcast. So do that. That's one. Number 2 is the question drill. Make a list of 10, 15 questions. So let's say I was coaching you on this, Kyle. It's a lot easier. It would be, hey, when you guest on a podcast, somebody's going to ask you questions. Make a list of all those questions, Kyle. Go back to the drawing board and say, if I had a second shot at this question, how would I answer it better? And your answers just get dramatically better over time. Like hopefully mine have. That's the second piece, who knows? And then the third ball is so simple, nobody does it. Pick 3 people you love in your life. Just 3. When was the last time you sent any of these 3 people a 20-second video message to just showcase how much you appreciate having them in your life? It takes 20 seconds. The only rule is you're not allowed to retake the video. That's it. Whatever you make is what you said. And if you do this with enough people, you'll get really good on camera. And one thing I do to push the gauntlet a little bit more is I have a Google Calendar right here on my screen, actually, that tells me whose birthday it is. It could be like a client of mine, a best friend, a business partner, and I'll put a stupid birthday hat on, like a $10, $15 hat. I'll open my phone and I'll go, guess whose birthday it is? Oh, wait a second. It's your birthday. I hope you have an incredible day. And I do that 100 times a year. So that's really the key.
Love it, man. It's creating moments. It is getting a rep in. And that's really what's so important in anything. Like you talked about the fitness, you talked about theater, and obviously what our conversation today is on communication is getting those reps. What resources outside of MasterTalk, which everybody should go check out, subscribe, do all those things. What other resources have been valuable to you as a communicator and a speaker that's helped do what you do even better?
For sure, Kyle. So I'm a big fan of the book Thirst by Scott Harrison. So Thirst by Scott Harrison. Scott Harrison is the CEO and founder of Charity Water. It's a nonprofit. He started to help the world gain access to clean drinking water. The guy's an absolute champion. He's raised $100 million for clean water in the last 12 months alone. And he's the America's largest water charity. But the reason I talk about Scott a lot in the context of the work that I do, I think Scott's one of the best storytellers on the planet. And in his book, Thirst, he really details how he tells the brand, how he speaks on a stage, so that's to create the impact that he has in his life. And I really think that's powerful. So I always highly recommend the book to anyone who wants a great example of not somebody who learns the tips, but has applied it to great result.
I love it, man. Where are you excited about where MasterTalk's going, where you're going? What's exciting in the world that you live in right now?
Yeah, for sure, Kyle. For me, and you got the quote really, really well there. I think the next Elon Musk is a 7-year-old girl who can't afford a communication coach. And I think when I look back at the people that I've learned from in my career, like Dale Carnegie, right, the author of the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. The problem is one of the greatest thought leaders that's ever lived on speaking, we don't have any recordings that much of him speaking because he was born from 1888, to 1955. And video was just getting started. It was still in black and white type of deal. So we didn't really have a recording of him giving a workshop, which stinks. Whereas I get an opportunity in my lifetime where, being on a podcast costs nothing, but making YouTube videos costs a little bit of money. But more importantly, people can learn communication out of the horse's mouth so that after I'm gone, people can study my videos for the rest of time. That's really my hope.
That's very cool, man. You got anything coming up that's really exciting as far as maybe how your people are working with you or what that looks like, or any fun events you got coming up?
Yeah, for sure, Kyle. So there's 2 ways to keep in touch there. The first one is definitely the YouTube channel. just go to MasterTalk in one word. You'll have access to hundreds of free videos on how to get better at speaking. And the second way to keep in touch is we do a free communication workshop every 2 weeks, like I was alluding to before. It's a Zoom call. It's free. It's 90 minutes and it's live. So I facilitate it myself. So if you want to jump on it, you'll learn a lot more about speaking because you'll see me actually give a workshop and you'll learn a lot from it. And the website to register is rockstarcommunicator.com.
Rockstarcommunicator.com. We'll have all that linked in there. Is there anything, any last minute encouragement or advice for, maybe the aspiring professional speaker, the seasoned one? Just what's on your heart to share before we land this plane?
For sure, Kyle. It was a great show, brother. Thanks for having me. So for me, the big idea here is a question that I'll leave your listeners with, Kyle. The question is this: how would your life change if you were an exceptional communicator? A lot of us, to your point, we focus on the fear. Oh my God, this sucks. I'll never be a great speaker. I'll never do that. But when we take a step back and say, hey, how would my life change if I was a great speaker? If we start to dream about our communication skills, because communication is not about speaking on a stage. That's one part. It's how we take care of our families. It's how we raise our children. It's how we talk to our friends. It's how we make new friends. It's how we improve the quality of our life. So if you can find a reason that allows you and pushes you to be a better speaker, I think that's time well spent to work on the skill.
Love it, man. Love it, love it, love it. We got one more question for you. And at Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast, we want to know, what does it mean to be a champion to you?
For me, being a champion, Kyle, is 3 parts. Number 1 is to make a conscious decision in your life to find your gift, even if you don't know what it is. Whether that gift is to be a professional athlete and be an external champion in people's eyes, whether it's to be a fighter, whether it's to be a mother, right? Taking care of her children. Whatever that gift is, make a conscious decision to find it. That's part 1 of being a champion. Part 2 is once you find the gift, cultivate it in the service of others. I've always believed that real champions embrace their gift so that they can serve as many people as possible with it. And I'm lucky I found mine early. But there's a third part to being a champion that a lot of people miss. And the third part, Kyle, is once you've found the gift and you've exploited it in the service of others, it's not enough to be a champ. To be a champion, you must also create space for other people to find their gift. And if you can do all 3 of these things, you are a champion.
Love it, man. Outside of rockstarcommunicators.com, where can folks find you online? Where can they best connect, or is that the best way to link up with you?
Absolutely. So that's the best way. I'll give you a couple of other socials too if you want. Instagram is Master Your Talk, because I couldn't get MasterTalk. And LinkedIn, my goodness, Kyle, if you can figure out how to spell my name, you could totally add me there and you can connect with me over there too.
Perfect, man. We'll link all that in the show notes, make it super easy for our listeners. Brenden, this was packed with value. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.
You've been listening to the Unleash the Champ Leadership Podcast. Our passion is to talk to successful people and hear all about their journey and what it took to get there. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit up the website at unleashthechamp.com. Find us on Instagram at Kyle J. Sullivan and hit up that Facebook page at Unleash the Champ. Remember, if you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But by all means, keep moving.